So in this tutorial, we'll look at the impacts of climate change on migration, and in particular, how climate change will push people to migrate, will force people to migrate. So remember, these push factors tend to be negative conditions where people live, forcing them to migrate. And this map highlights a number of kind of hotspot regions that are largely Southern Hemisphere based, and in NEEs and LIC countries. So we've got environmental degradation of fresh water, we've got climate-induced increase in storms and flood disasters, we have a decline in food production, and then we just have environmentally sensitive areas which are pushing people to migrate. And the thing I would like to say as well is that migration, of course, is very complex. There are a number of underlying reasons and motivations why people will migrate, including kind of those pull factors, the need to want a better life, the need to find a safer place to live, and to find a better quality of life. So the different factors are there, and it's quite complex to actually isolate one factor over another. But seriously, what we're seeing is climate change pressing the issue and forcing environmental changes on populations, which causes migration. It becomes one of these underlying factors. So if we take a look at another map, we can see here examples of displaced people, and we're looking at the year 2014 and 15. And what I've done here is I've highlighted some areas which I think are more climate-based hazard events. So we've got examples here to do with floods and landslides, as well as increased storms. So you see here South Asia, Southeast Asia being hit by storms, as well as, of course, the Caribbean and the USA. Africa, different impacts, but quite flood-based, landslide issues down here in South America. So we see displacement taking place because of these particularly very climate sensitive shocks. So we have a look at a graph that looks at maybe quite a short timeline. What we do see is we have these shocks that cause migration, these mega events that occur, and they're still sporadic. And we can't really see an underlying trend in very large events either. Very large events are present in this time period. But what we do see is we see an increasing trend in large events, a large event being a displacement of 100,000 to 1 million people, and a marginal increase in these smaller events, these small events which occur regularly that displace small groups of people across maybe a large spatial area. Now this represents a 10-year period between 2008 and 2018, and I think it's fair to say we're experiencing the impacts here of climate change within this 10-year period. So I would say the numbers of people being displaced are very high. What's causing that displacement? Well, this very simplistic graph, if we think about, well, actually what are weather-related events and what are geophysical, you can see that weather-related events are dominant and are consistently the major cause of displacement in the world. We could highlight that in a number of examples. So Vietnam, the Philippines, and Indonesia. So those geophysical hazards, a small number of them affecting Philippines and Indonesia. But the major factors being kind of flood-based, storm-based, and wind-based. But again, what we see here is we see maybe more climate change-related disasters having a major impact on Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia. If I look again at Bangladesh, which we highlighted earlier in terms of health impacts, they're going to experience some significant problems in this very low-lying country. So it's going to disrupt traditional rain patterns. It's going to cause droughts in some areas, unexpected deluges in others. We're going to see silt-heavy runoff from the glaciers in the Himalaya mountains upstream. And this is going to cause increased flooding and river bank erosion, not to mention rising sea levels. So, over the last decade, nearly 700,000 100,000 Bangladeshis have been displaced each year. And this has been due to natural disasters and those underlying problems of erosion, salinity, crop failure, and a kind of inundation. They've also experienced some big peaks. So, for example, 2009, they were hit by Cyclone Isla. I mean, this didn't have a large death toll, but it did displace millions of people at the time. So Bangladesh is maybe one good case example to use. So overall, the number of Bangladeshis displaced by varied impacts of climate change could reach 13.3 million people by 2050. So this would make it the country's number one driver of internal migration. And that's according to a 2018 World Bank report.